Most wealthy people share one quiet habit. It looks boring from the outside, and that is exactly why it works. The habit is not glamorous, loud, or impressive. It rarely makes anyone feel excited or clever in the moment. Yet it quietly builds almost every lasting fortune. The wealthy protect it more than any single decision. Here's the strange part most people miss. The wealthy are not chasing thrills with their money anymore. They are repeating something small, calm, and unremarkable, something most people would honestly call painfully boring. Most people chase intensity instead of consistency. They want the big move, the perfect timing, the breakthrough. The wealthy stopped needing that excitement long ago. They traded thrill for something quieter and more reliable. By the end, you will see that habit clearly. You will understand why it builds wealth that truly lasts. The wealthy are not smarter or luckier than everyone else. They simply made peace with slow, repeatable progress. Picture two people earning the same income for a decade. One searches for shortcuts, hot tips, and dramatic wins. The other repeats one small action every single month, without fanfare, without announcement, without negotiation. 10 years later, their lives look nothing alike. The exciting one is still searching for a breakthrough. The boring one quietly owns something real, something built brick by unremarkable brick over years. That contrast is the whole secret hiding in plain sight. Most people overestimate intensity and underestimate consistency every time. The wealthy learned to flip that equation early. They saw what time does to small, repeated actions. Intensity feels powerful, but rarely lasts beyond a season. It burns hot, then quietly disappears. Consistency feels weak, but it compounds for decades. Time turns the boring habit into something almost unstoppable. Think about how the wealthy treat their routines. They do the same unexciting thing again and again. A small contribution made automatically every single month. A slow review of expenses without any panic. A quiet refusal to touch what is meant to grow. A patience that looks almost unnatural to outsiders. None of these feel like wealth in the moment. That is why most people abandon them too soon. The wealthy mindset accepts boredom as part of the price. They do not need every action to feel exciting. They need it to feel reliable, repeatable, almost invisible. That invisibility is a feature, not a flaw. Compare that to the common pattern most people fall into. They start strong, feel motivated, then slowly drift away. They wait for the next surge of energy to begin again. The habit lives and dies with the mood. That stop-start rhythm quietly drains long-term wealth. The habit never gets enough time to truly compound. The boring habit works because it removes motivation entirely. You do not need to feel inspired to keep going. You only need the action to keep happening, even on the days it feels meaningless. Many wealthy people describe their financial life as almost dull. They are not glued to charts or news cycles. They have already decided what they will keep doing. That decision, made once, replaces 1,000 smaller ones. This is where temperament matters more than intelligence does. A calm person with an average plan often outperforms brilliance. Brilliance without consistency is just potential that never lands. Repetition is what turns ideas into real outcomes. Most people assume wealth comes through bold, decisive moments. The truth is closer to a slow, steady drip. A single drop seems harmless, but carves stone over time. The wealthy understand they are both stone and drop. There is something else hidden inside this boring habit. It is not just an action, it is an identity. The wealthy see themselves as someone who keeps going. That self-image protects the habit on hard days. When you see yourself as someone who repeats, you stop negotiating. You stop asking whether to skip this month. The habit becomes part of who you are. Not something you do, but something you simply are. This identity shift is what most short-term thinkers never make. They keep treating their habits as temporary experiments. So at the first sign of friction, the experiment ends. The identity was never strong enough to hold. The wealthy treat habits as commitments to their future self. They imagine that person clearly enough to protect them. The boring action becomes a quiet act of loyalty, a small letter mailed forward through time. Notice how different that feels from chasing motivation. Motivation asks how you happen to feel right now. Loyalty to your future self asks what they need. The answer is almost always the same boring habit. That mental shift changes everything about money behavior. You stop reacting to moods, markets, and constant noise. Here's where most people get the timeline backwards. They expect visible results inside weeks or a few months. The boring habit pays its real dividends across decades. The first stretch almost always looks like nothing. In the early stages, almost nothing seems to happen. The numbers look small. The progress looks invisible. That early silence is exactly where most people quit. They assume the silence means the habit is failing. The wealthy expect that quiet stretch and prepare for it. They know the first years feel like planting in dirt. Nothing is above ground, but the roots are forming underneath. Growth is happening in places you cannot see. That is the mental model behind so many quiet fortunes. They trust the underground work to happen on schedule. Pause for a moment and think about your own money habits. Which actions in your life are quiet and consistent? Which ones depend on motivation, mood, or a perfect plan? Be honest without judging yourself for the answer. Most of us were never taught to value boring repetition. We were taught to value excitement and visible effort. Notice if one small money habit keeps starting and stopping, one you abandon every time life gets a little louder. That single habit might be carrying more weight than you think, might be the quiet hinge of your future. If something comes to mind, share it in the comments below. Your honest reflection might quietly help another viewer. Someone reading may recognize their own pattern in your words. A stranger may feel less alone for a moment. Then keep watching with that habit in mind. The next part shows why it really matters so much. The deeper principle behind the boring habit is leverage through time. Time is the one resource you cannot manufacture. The wealthy treat time as their most powerful ally. They refuse to fight it or rush ahead of it. A small, repeated action across 20 years is not small. It is a quiet force that reshapes a financial life. But it only works if the action keeps happening. Every interruption shrinks the force a little more. This is why the wealthy guard their habits so carefully. They protect them from emotion, distraction, and clever ideas. They know one consistent decade beats 10 brilliant weeks. The math always favors the one who simply stayed. Most people, by contrast, interrupt their own compounding constantly. They pause the habit when life feels uncertain. They restart it when life feels inspiring again. The roots never get to settle into the soil. There is also a hidden calm that comes with this approach. When your habit is automatic, money stops feeling chaotic. That calm is one of the quietest privileges of wealth. The mind stops spinning on 1,000 small choices. This is something anyone can begin building right now. You do not need a fortune to think this way. You only need one small action you will not abandon, something small enough to survive your worst week. Start with something almost embarrassingly small if needed. Size matters less than its long-term survival rate. A tiny action repeated for years beats a large one once. The wealthy understand this on a deep level. They would rather protect a small habit than launch a big one. They know enthusiasm fades, but routine endures. This is also why they rarely brag about financial moves. The work is happening where no one can see. Most short-term thinkers need their progress to be visible. The wealthy stop needing that kind of confirmation. You can borrow this principle even before you feel wealthy. Choose one small money habit, then keep it almost secret. Let it grow in the background of your ordinary life. Resist the urge to announce or optimize it constantly. Resist the urge to check it every single day. Let it become as boring as brushing your teeth. Over time, you will notice something quietly shifting inside. Money will feel less like a storm and more like weather. Something you can stand inside without panic. Something you can plan around without constant fear. That inner shift is the real reward of the boring habit. The numbers grow, but so does your temperament. You become someone who can hold wealth without losing yourself, someone steady enough to carry whatever finally arrives. Many people who suddenly receive money quickly lose it again. They never built the temperament to carry it well. The habit was missing long before the money ever arrived. The container was too small to hold the contents. The wealthy mindset builds the container before the contents. The boring habit is that container, quietly forming. It allows wealth to stay once it finally shows up. Without it, even good fortune slips quietly away. So the question is not how to find a perfect strategy. The question is what small habit you can sustain, what action you can keep doing when no one is watching, when no one is clapping and nothing feels urgent. Think of it like tending a slow, patient garden. You do not pull the roots up to see them grow. You simply return to the same patch of soil, day after day, season after quiet season. Some weeks the garden looks like nothing is happening. The wealthy keep showing up to the same patch anyway. That quiet loyalty to the same small action is the secret. Not a brilliant idea, not a lucky break. Just a habit that refused to be abandoned. A promise kept quietly across many ordinary years. If you are starting from scratch, you are not behind. You are simply at the beginning of your patient garden. The most important season is the one you are in now, not the one you wish you had started in. Choose one boring habit you can promise your future self. Make it small enough to survive your bad weeks. Protect it the way the wealthy protect theirs. Not with intensity, but with quiet, unshakable repetition. You would not feel wealthy in the first weeks of this. You may not even feel any different at all. That is normal, and it is not a sign to stop. The habit is not designed to thrill you. It is designed to outlast every mood you ever have, including the one telling you it is not working. If this view of money felt like quiet relief, stay with it. Reflect on one habit you want to protect. Share that habit in the comments if you feel ready. Someone scrolling past might need your honest words today. If this channel helps you see money differently, please subscribe and turn on the bell for more. The loudest financial lives are rarely the wealthiest ones. The truly wealthy mind moves slowly and on purpose. It trusts boring repetition more than brilliant timing. It chooses patience over performance every single time. You do not need to become a different person for this. You only need to keep one small, steady promise. A promise to your future self, repeated quietly across the years, again and again and again. That is the boring habit behind most lasting wealth. Not a secret, not a strategy, not a shortcut. Just one quiet action, repeated long after most people quit. One ordinary choice made extraordinary by time. Start small, stay calm, and let time do its quiet work. Your future self is already waiting in the distance. Walk toward them now, one boring, beautiful, ordinary step at a careful time every day.